Ghosts, hauntings, paranormal history. Join us as we journey into the dark with your host, Mike Davis. Welcome back to the podcast. I want to apologize for not posting before today. We've had some technical difficulties in our studio. It's all been taken care of. Now, why do so many people, all from various beliefs and walks of life, believe in the paranormal? See, I believe in a God, the Christian version, although I've never seen him. I have faith that he's here watching over his children. It should come as no surprise that so many believe in ghosts and spirits, assuming that they have a faith system that they adhere to. The same principle would apply. Their higher power, although unseen by them, is watching over them. This is called faith. What one believes often goes hand in hand with their faith, as is the case with the paranormal, I would suspect. I have faith that there's a God, and I also believe in ghosts and spirits, and I've seen the latter. To illustrate my point on people believing in ghosts coming from all walks of life, let's go all the way back in time to ancient Rome. Pliny the Younger, in his letter to Lucius Sora in the 1st century AD, told of a spirit haunting a house. A certain philosopher had come to Athens and needed a house to rent. Having found an advertisement for one, the philosopher rented the house for a very cheap price. He had his servants set up a couch and a table in a front room and sent them off to bed. He worked that night on whatever it is philosophers work on. As he was working, he heard the noise of chains rattling. The philosopher, being busy in his work, ignored the sound until it came into the room where he sat. Only then did he look up and see a spirit that he described as the form of an old man of extremely emaciated and squalid appearance, with long beard and disheveled hair, rattling chains on his feet and hands. The spirit beckoned the philosopher to follow him. The philosopher obliged, his curiosity having been piqued. And so they walked into a garden, and once the spirit approached a certain point, he disappeared. The philosopher made a mark on the exact spot, and the next day the spot was dug up and the bones of a person bound in chains was found. The bones were removed and given a proper burial, and the spirit was never seen again. Now, moving forward in time, Anne Boleyn has been spotted in the Tower of London since her beheading for various crimes in 1536. A little closer to our time, let's take a look at the battlefield at Gettysburg. Now, that place is considered the turning point of the Civil War. There, many hundreds of men lost their lives quickly, and it's said their ghosts still roam the battlefield, and there have been pictures to prove it to this day. Now, the first ghost I ever saw was of an old co-worker of my mother's. His name was John. John watched over me and my two brothers when we were young. He took us to the circus several times, and we went to the zoo often. He was just generally a good guy. One day, I must have been about 15 or 16 years old, I was waiting on a bus stop on one of the busiest streets in Chicago. I saw John across the street, and so I shouted his name over the traffic on Western Avenue. And if you live in Chicago, you know Western is always busy. He looked around, spotted me, waved, and went on his way. And I thought nothing more of it. When I got home about 40 minutes later, my mom was in the kitchen making dinner for everybody. I said, "Hey Ma, guess who I saw?" She said, "Who did you see?" she asked. There. Not turning around from the stove. "Well, I was over on Western in the old neighborhood and I saw Uncle John walking towards Levitt." "No, you didn't," my mother said as she turned around towards me, her face pale and white. I said, "I sure did. I saw him right on." She cut me off with a wave of her hand. "You couldn't possibly have seen him. He died 7 years ago." Now, was John checking up on me? To this day, I don't know. I'd like to believe he was. So the proceeding is why I became so enthralled with the paranormal, the unanswered questions of life after death. What happens to us? Do we just fade away to nothing? Do we ascend into our reward or slide down to punishment for a life lived of sin? I think this is why so many people believe in the paranormal. They want to find the answers to these questions before they shuffle off this mortal coil. Whichever the case, keep searching, dear listener. Keep searching. This has been Into the Dark with Mike Davis, a Dragon Bear Media production. Follow our journey into the dark on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Radio Public.